The famous French artist Henri Matisse died in 1954 at the age of 86. And in the final years of his life, his hands were so stricken with arthritis that it was very painful for him to paint. But he painted anyway. And he put a cloth in between his fingers to keep the paintbrush from slipping. Someone watching him paint in pain asked him, he said, "Why do you put your body through that pain?" He said, "Pain passes, but beauty remains." Pain passes, but beauty remains. We could go on in that manner and say, pain passes, but love remains, and truth remains. And we can know the truth of that in our own lives. For when we love someone, we will do things for that person that we would do for no other reason, willingly. Isn't that true? You couldn't pay me enough to do that. And the same thing is for truth. Sooner or later, we have to speak our truth. And some people, you just can't keep them from speaking that truth. That's why Jesus did what we proclaimed in the gospel that you just heard, that he was willing to undergo his passion and his death, a very gruesome scene. Because he came, God so loved the world that he sent his only Son, that those who believe in him might not die, but might have eternal life. And it ended up costing him his life. But he was unwilling to say, well, I don't love you that much. I'm out of here. Rather, he stayed, and since he knew the truth of God's love for us and of his own love, he underwent his death. So, considering it's such a gruesome scene, why do we recall it every year? Twice during Holy Week. There's several reasons I can think of. One of them is this, that we do not forget the consequences of our own sin, starkly exhibited on the death of Jesus on the cross. And it can well remind us of the pain that we bring into other people's lives as well as into our own lives through our sin. And the separation that it causes us from God when we turn our back, separate ourselves from God through our sin. It's a good thing to remember that our sin has consequences, isn't it? The second reason to remember is that Jesus, as the second reading said, loved us so much and lived our life just like we did, and he was tested in everything except sin and gave up his life so that we might look at him and see the image of love. This is what love looks like. Someone who walked around in skin like we do to show us that it's possible to love like that. And another reason is that we know that the passion and death of Christ is only two parts of the Triduum, 3-day message. Passage and the death, as gruesome as it is, ends in resurrection. God will have the final word. And the final reason I'll mention is this, that it shows us a model for love. That as God loved us, so are we to love one another, even when it hurts, or maybe especially when it hurts. You see, because this kind of love isn't what you call romantic love. It's deep down love based in the love of God. God's love for us, which we are then asked to share with one another. It is not the end of the story, but it is our story, and we are called to walk that same way of love, not only to death and suffering, but to the resurrection.